Hello, good morning or good afternoon in South Africa, Jordan.
Hello, Saeed. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear. Is that morning
Excellent.
or afternoon in South Africa?
It is 1 o'clock in the afternoon here. It
Oh,
is
wonderful.
a
Yeah.
somewhat sunny, overcast day, a little bit wintry, but nonetheless, it's not too cold. Luckily, we don't have very cold winters here. And you, it is what, 6 o'clock there? Hey, it's in the evening. Is it dark yet?
The evening, 6 p.m. actually. So I think
Okay.
we are the recording sessions because this is the after the office hours. So I think
Hmm.
we will record and we post it on the YouTube and another social channel. So I think we can start it
Great.
with our recording sessions. After that, we will post it
Absolutely.
on our YouTube channel, and then people can see and can look at what we discussed for this afternoon. And then we are waiting for FOLUKE. I think she's joining now, and I will give you 15 minutes. I think this is the sharing sessions. We would like to hear what's the challenging of implementation, local economic development policy programs that's happening right now in your city, your country, in in the narrative that you want to share with us. And then also I will ask Paluka as well for 15 minutes, and then we can have some closing statements. So I think within 45 minutes, we will close our sharing session. Is that fine with you, Jordan?
Absolutely fine with me.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely
Again,
fine.
we can start right now. Paluka, can you hear us, Paluka?
Yes, I can. I'm trying to put on my video. So good
Yeah.
afternoon to you guys.
Yes.
Jordan, nice to see you again.
Hello, FOLUKE. It's lovely to see you as well.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you as well. How are you, Faluka?
I'm good. I'm good, Sai. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So actually, this is the recording session because actually in Indonesia it's almost 6 p.m. and then we will post it. We will post our discussion on our YouTube channel and another social media platform. So I give you 15 minutes and I give Jordan 15 minutes to share what is the challenging and what is the opportunity in local economic development implementation in case of Nigeria and in case of South Africa. So I think we will go to Paluka or Jordan first to share the challenging and the happening in implementation of local economic development in case of two countries, South Africa and Nigeria. But actually, this event is recorded. So after we finish in 45 minutes, we will have a closing statement. So who will go first? Or maybe this Jordan or Paluka will go first? Who are you going to?
I have no problem letting FOLUKE go first. She
All
Okay.
right.
knock her side.
All right. So
Okay.
first, before we start it, let me introduce first because it's recording. So thank you, Paluka. Thank you, Jordan, for coming in our session. I think this is the first session for us to have international exposure with two speakers from first from South Africa and second from Nigeria. And as mentioned before, we would like to hear from you the perspective of local economic development implementation in your country, So the first speaker, Jordan Griffiths, you are the chief of staff to executive mayor in the city of Tshwane in South Africa. I think the capital city of the South Africa. And the second speaker is FOLUKE ADEMOKUN. She is the entrepreneur trainer, gender equity advocate in Nigeria. So first, let me give your time, Jordan, to share with us the implementation of local economic development in case of city of Tshwane and also South Africa overall challenging and what happening right now in the country. In 15 minutes, please. So please, Jordan.
Sorry, Saeed. What do you want me to start? Sorry, I missed that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Apologies, Saeed. I thought we were going to do FOLUKE. So, thank you very much for the opportunity. As indicated, I'm Jordan. I'm from the city of Tshwane, and I work as the chief of staff in the mayor's office. And that's a role that allows me to have oversight across a multitude of different operations in the city of Tshwane, and exactly what happens in various aspects of development. For some context, for those who are viewing it, the city of Tshwane is the capital city of South Africa. It has approximately 4 million people, and it is considered to be the hub of government where the executive is held. The presidency is just up the road from me in his office, and all of the national executive departments are housed around the inner city of Tshwane. Our city has a large economic footprint. We have one of the largest amount of research institutions and academic institutions housed in the country. We have multiple universities housed in our city. We have a thriving agricultural sector. So one of the interesting things about the city of Tshwane is that we are we were recently the third biggest metropolitan by geographical area in the world. So we have a population of 4 million, but they're spread out in a very wide geographical area, 100 kilometers north to south and 100 kilometers east to west. And so that means that we have a very large service area, and we then house multiple different economic sectors, one of which is agriculture, because we actually include a large rural footprint in our city. So there's a lot of farmers, livestock farming and fresh produce farming. In fact, we have one of the biggest fresh produce markets in the country in our city, where all of the different farmers, not only from our city, but from other parts of the province that we're located in, come together to sell their wares. We also have a very thriving technological and manufacturing sector. We house BMW, their manufacturing plant is here. We house Nissan. We have a special economic zone that houses Forward. And these are, large-scale automotive manufacturers that are based in the city and drive highly industrialized processes. We also are very competitive within the aerospace and defense sector. So our weapons development sector is quite advanced, missile sector, and there's a lot of advanced manufacturing and engineering firms that are involved in that space, because some of the companies that are based in the city of Tshwane are in fact exporters of this technology. In fact, just a little bit later on in the year, we will be having a aerospace and defense exhibition at one of the military airports that is based in the city, whereby multiple exhibitors from across the world come in, set up stands, and it runs for 3 days and draws in hundreds of thousands of people who exhibit their wares, but also it is a trading platform for the sector. So these are a number of the core industries. Obviously, that excludes some of those that are more familiar. So we do have a thriving retail sector, property development sector. The government sector is huge because government is housed in our city. So there's a lot of government partners that are housed in our city. We also have a thriving retail sector, a lot of big, large-scale shopping malls. In fact, not far from me is a place called Menlyn Retail, which is the largest shopping center in the Southern Hemisphere by square meterage. It is quite huge. In fact, it's so huge, I don't actually know my way around it. I get lost whenever I go there. and have to use my cell phone to try and navigate around. It's a very, very big retail center. So that maybe just maps out the profile broadly of the city of Tshwane and its economic profile and footprint. And so when we talk about local economic development and strategy in the city, a lot of our focus is on how do we support the sectors that are based in the city and advance the needs of those that are not based in the city and that may be interested in coming to the city to set up. And as a local government practitioner, right, as someone who operates in the mayor's office, my job is focused on looking at policies and arrangements that would allow a more beneficial economic environment for firms to thrive. And so some of the things that we do in that space is we have a investment facilitation unit that's based in our city. Because when you want to set up a development in the city, you've obviously got to go through business and planning approvals and get the various checks and balances on the installation of your water infrastructure, on your electricity infrastructure, on your road infrastructure, on your sewage infrastructure. And sometimes that can get clogged in unnecessary bureaucracy. So we have a program in our city called the Strategic Urban Developments Program, SUDs. And these are projects that we've identified that have a particularly large, sizable economic impact, along with a large job growth impact, which we identify as strategic. And we then classify them as SUDs. And the result of that classification is that they then receive priority in how we process and plan for those developments. And many of these are very large scale that would have an impact on hundreds of thousands of lives. So this is one of the ways in which we try and facilitate economic development in our city, is to try and make sure that we actually have a dedicated team of people that facilitate this. This forms part of a broader economic development department. So we have also a dedicated economic development department. And one of the jobs that they have is also to help and facilitate the informal trader sector. So they've got to regulate informal traders, where informal traders set up, where they put their stands, where they trade from, and if they have licenses. So there's a whole team of people that are also trying to manage the informal trading space, which can become quite competitive and also can become quite, can generate aspects of urban sprawl when people start trading or setting up stores outside of demarcated zones or randomly in the streets, which becomes a problem. And so you have to try and regulate that as best you can. A part of the Economic Development Department's mandate as well is to assist in marketing the city, right? So trying to identify why the city is a good place for people to do business and what the competitive strengths are of the city of Tshwane. And there are many, right? I don't want to lay them all now, but we have a very good climate in the city of Tshwane, which is relatively mild all year round. Our infrastructure, our road infrastructure is quite good. We also offer clear pathways towards the interior of sub-Saharan Africa. So this is quite important. We also are currently looking at expanding our public infrastructure network. Our bus transportation is expanding outwards. There's lots of talk about local rail as well and metro rail effectively that would assist in bringing people closer to opportunities. And that's very important because, as I mentioned, our city is big geographically. So it's not big population size, although 4 million is quite a large amount of people. It's still a big city comparatively, but it's got a very, very large geographical footprint. So people spend a lot of money traveling to work in the city of Tshwane. Like they can often spend a significant portion of their daily income, like a third of their daily income, just coming into and out of the office. And so this is something that you obviously, as a city, you need to break down that barrier. You need to create proper roadways. You need to develop public transport that is reliable and that brings people to opportunities and takes them back home. So this is quite important to us. Obviously, one of the challenges we have with local economic development and how we engage is that South Africa is a relatively very, very unequal society. So it is a heavily stratified society with people who operate at a high income level, middle income, and a low income. And the gap between those is quite large. It's very large, in fact. And so from a policy perspective, you are always walking a very fine line or balance between between the sort of haves and the have-nots. And this can create conflict, which can undermine economic growth. So one of the biggest challenges we have, unfortunately, is we refer to them as business forums, or they're often known as a construction mafia, unfortunately, which is that construction projects that are brought to communities to facilitate growth, both from the public and the private sector, are often met by individuals who claim to be representing the community, but are actually running an extortion racket. So they are trying to basically force the construction firm to pay them off for a racketeering fee or protection fee, this kind of stuff. And that can totally hamstring a development such that developers will resist and they'll fight back. There'll be violence, people can be killed, or projects can be stopped and disrupted. So this is one of the things that severely hurts our ability to grow and develop our city, which is quite frustrating and requires active law enforcement and policing, which we have to invest in. And that makes it quite challenging. One of the biggest hindrances to local economic development is also infrastructure. South Africa has been plagued very recently by what's called load shedding. Load shedding, which is the rotational supply of electricity due to constraints on the national grid. In other words, that means that for prolonged periods of time, 4 hours or up to 6 hours a day, electricity is cut off in order to ensure that the national grid is sustained. Now, this is not conducive to business. Luckily, it seems that we are now past these challenges. Now, that's something that the city has no control over, but obviously the reliable supply of electricity is critically important to any form of economic growth. But so far, we've overcome those challenges. I mentioned this as an area that we are trying to solve, but a big challenge in Tshwane is public transport, is the accessibility of economic nodes in the city through public transport and the time it takes and the affordability thereof. And so this is a top priority for us from a governmental planning perspective in terms of how we lay out our city, where we plan our bus routes in particular, in order to try and pick up as many people as possible and bring them to places of opportunity. So that very broadly, and specifically outlines the economic development strategy and thinking in the city of Tshwane. Saeed, I'm not too sure if you have any particular questions you'd like to probe me on to ask me a bit more.
Yeah, I think we can discuss deep after we stop you after this discussion. I think we got your idea as a whole story of your city, and also you already mentioned about your story. And after this, we would like to hear from FOLUKE about her story as well. After that, we will conclude our conclusion. So this is just the sharing session. We would like to hear about your opinions. So after that, our viewer, because we will post our discussion on the YouTube, will see as the case study what happening right now from our perspective in this discussion, what happening in your city in South Africa, and also what happening in the city of FOLUKE in Nigeria. And this, because this is just the sharing session, I will not go to many questions. We would like to hear from your perspective as well. So,
sure.
So thank you, Jordan, for your sharing with us, with our audience. I think this very complete story from you, from social, economic, geographic, population perspective, and what the challenging in your Tshwane city as well. As you mentioned, infrastructures, public transport is top priority of your city right now to solve the issue. So thank you, Jordan. And after this, we would like to hear from FOLUKE what happening in Nigeria, what happening in your city, what is the challenging to implementation of local economic development. As I mentioned before, this is the sharing session. We will hear from you, and then we will make a closing statement and a short discussion as well. So please, FOLUKE, you can start it now, maximum in 15 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Saeed. Thank you to you and your team for organizing this, and very robust experience shared by Jordan. I was just listening. I want to say that yes, my experience sharing will come with the Nigerian perspectives. I live in the city of Lagos. Lagos was originally the capital, political capital of Nigeria. But then the capital was moved, to Abuja, and now Lagos is the commercial, hub of Nigeria. So it's I would say once you get the vibe of Lagos, you get the vibe of Nigeria as a whole, because it's the nerve center of the nation. Nigeria is about 200 million people, and the best way to describe the population of Nigeria is that to say that 1 in every 5 Black person across the world is a Nigerian. So we have a very youthful population, which also is an asset to us as a nation, having very youthful population. The southern part of Nigeria is the rainforest, where ordinarily we should be having robust agricultural activities. But then it hasn't been like that because of the issue of insurgency, which some of us on this call will be familiar with. But then we do our best in the agricultural sector. It's been one of the mainstays of the Nigeria economy. Even in the north, where the soil is arid, with the help of irrigation, well, the northern part of Nigeria could also be described as some form of food basket, of the nation. Yes, looking at the local economic, development, of Nigeria, I would just take the World Bank, perspective that looks at the overall goal of building economic capacity within a local, area. And this is typical, of the Nigerian situation, where because of the resilience of the average Nigerian, you will see the economic, activity of a particular local area, begin to spring up and begin to get diverse and begin to be strong. The strategy is we have an organic way of building our economy building the local economy in Nigeria, because Nigeria, because of the situation of lack of infrastructure, our infrastructure is not as developed as that of South Africa. In short, there is this saying that every Nigerian, household is a local government of its own, because you need to provide your water, not relying on government, water supply. You dig your borehole. You also need to provide your electricity, and thankfully, because of the new energy, approach of solar and all other forms of energy now, you see more Nigerian, businesses, build up informally and also rely on solar energy, on the new energy for their businesses. Yes, and in terms of talking about economic capacity, developing economic capacity of a local area, two fallout, for me from the World Bank perspective is to improve economic, future, and we are seeing that trajectory in Nigeria. That yes, from the open market, we are also building modern retail chains, just like you have in South Africa. You have indigenous Nigerian businesses that are building up on those organic open market system to develop a modern retail market. And looking at it, for those who have been able to aspire and cross over, we see some improvement in their quality of life, which is one of the goals or one of the objectives of having a lead, within your economy. But I quickly want to take that further to talk about the challenges that we have. We have the weak, involvement of the public sector, in infrastructure, for instance, in services. I talk about water, talk about electricity, talk about, transportation. Yes, we have some state governments, get involved in air, in land transport, in water transport. But the strength of our infrastructure is, for now, the public, the private sector, rather, the private sector. And this is helping, to transform, businesses from the informal, because from the informal, sector to a more formalized sector. Where you have the open market system in Nigeria, you just have businesses coalesce, sectors coalesce round about, this organic, entrepreneurial opportunity or economic opportunity within a particular local sector. So we have the issue of lack of or weak involvement of government in infrastructure and service delivery. although we have ministries, for economic development in Nigeria. You have ministries of commerce and industry. You also have some agencies that have been assigned, to specific aspects of businesses. Like we have the SMIDAN, Small and Medium Enterprises Agency Development of Nigeria, that is involved in capacity development, for enterprises. We also have the NAFDAC. This is an agency that is in control of food and drugs, in Nigeria. They are involved in product, development or product certification. We have the Standard Organization of Nigeria that's also involved in product, certification, like equipment and all that. We also have like I've talked about the ministries, that are involved. Ministry of Finance, they are involved in sometimes providing grants, to small businesses so that they can, grow. But then we right now in Nigeria, to develop, the economy, the issue of taxation has come in as a critical issue, priority for government to consider, on how benefits can, get to the average, person out there, so that they can grow their businesses and they are not overburdened, by multiple taxation. So these are the areas that government is looking into in terms of providing regulatory, support. In terms of regulation, the government of Nigeria, state, at federal, at local level, they are quite involved and always making sure that there is one regulation or another to guide businesses. Sometimes this can be very stringent, to the extent that could be business, killer. But when it comes to service and infrastructure, we have a problem, there, and these are areas that we are looking into. For instance, the issue of data. Somebody can come and say Nigeria is about 200 million, in population, and another person say 180. So we need to build up, when it comes to, the issue of data collection, data analysis, and the utilization of data. If you want to talk about local economic development, you must know the population of a particular, sector, particularly gender population, because inequality is another area that we think is stifling, local economic development in Nigeria, because women do not have as much opportunities as men do have, to set up, businesses. Maybe because of child care or other, burden of care, which of course women, bear more, and lack of consideration for those issues that are biological that could affect, the successes, the development of women businesses. So data, will be important, for us in Nigeria to develop our local, economy. And when I talk about data, I'm looking at it from the perspective of gender and analysis. Then, and also we may also need to begin to look at our system of education, that doesn't, promote entrepreneurship, as it were. The average Nigerian would rather go, to college and get out of it, just thinking of employment, by others, not creating, that employment, creating that job. And I think it's, critical. Seeing how current, situations. I don't know how many of us on this call are aware that currently, as I speak, we have a nationwide protest about bad governance in Nigeria. It started, today. It's expected to run for the next 10 days, but depending on how negotiation goes, it may be called, off. And this, the protest has been, spearheaded by the youth, who feel that they are shortchanged, in the benefits, that the Nigeria, the nation, should provide to help young people find job, or create, a job. But in spite of that, we have seen that within Nigeria, we have some key areas that are driving local, economic development. And one of these, areas I want to share, with us is entertainment. Most everybody around about the world, they are familiar with the Nigerian music, and this I would want to say is private driven. This resilient, hardworking, talented, youth who took their destinies in their hands and felt, oh, we could, from Nigeria reach across the world. And thankfully, in entertainment, this has paid off. This effort, the efforts of this young stars, maybe in music, in films, as the efforts have paid off. In fashion, Nigerian designers are young, talented young women, mostly are well known across the world. You have people who would rather come to Nigeria to have their fabric done, particularly people who are from other parts of the world that are Afrocentric, and they come and they fly into Nigeria to give some of these designers their some jobs to do. If I mention Whiskey, Davido, Burna Boy, these are Nigerian, Rema, like that. Most of us, the current wave, they just started with, from humble, beginning from humble background, but with determination. They are able to own, their own, on the world stage. So we should celebrate, that's never say die, culture or character of the average Nigerian. We have Vicky James, very well known, Tubo, these are some Nigerian, fashion designers that are doing, very, very well, globally, that have been celebrated, for their work. And we also have some even with indigenous art, like we have art galleries, springing up, which is also part of, culture, and fashion. Agric, I already mentioned, to us, Agric is one of the mainstays of our nation. Yet we have more women operating in the agricultural sector, but the issue is that these women are operating at subsistence level. You have fewer men, but these are the men with the big, large, size, farms that have access to fertilizer, access to government infrastructure, and access to fund. So this is one area for people who are interested, in being part of the local economic development in Nigeria. Agriculture is one area that is thriving and that has been consistent in terms of its contribution to the GDP, in terms of contribution to employment generation. You have, because of the large population of Nigeria in the diaspora, you see Nigerian food and Nigerian culture, beginning to be part of the global, food, culture. So agriculture is one area that we are looking at. Yes, there is problem, with agriculture. We are not producing at a full capacity because of insurgency, because of insecurity, because of violence, which, at most times targeted women when it comes to the issue of rape, and other forms of violence. Yes, I can't finish this session without, talking about ICT. The Nigerian ICT sector is burgeoning, it's growing, it's providing more opportunities, for different fintech, financial tech, promoting inclusion, financial inclusion, for people. You have young people who go into repairs. You even have a Nigerian, phone, company now. So we have, because of the Nigerian government cashless policy, the government had a cashless policy to promote it, fintech, sector. And this is helping the sector as more Nigerians are relying lesser on cash transaction. Now it's part of our culture, not to carry cash, but to be able to use your mobile phones to do your financial transaction. And for us, I work for Ajoke Aishat Afolabi Foundation as the executive coordinator. And I have, I'm focused on, I'm a gender advocate that is focused on women empowerment and women's rights. And because we have identified the gaps, the gender gaps in some of these sectors on our own also, we are supporting women in the agricultural space because there are parts of Nigeria that women do not have access to land. So access to input, access to extension services. So this what we are doing to help them produce local staple and see how we help with the issue of food security. We also recognize that, lastly, that when you talk about gender gap in technology, you are not just talking about lack of access to data for women. You are talking about lack of access to devices. And that is just the basics. You must first provide the devices before you talk about the data. And in this, we have supported, women, hundreds of women, with economic opportunities with grants, with devices, phone devices, for them to be able to also be part of what is going on locally. So thank you once again for having me.
Thank you, FOLUKE. I think we got a lot of information from his perspective, because I think, again, it's the time that we have to manage. I think for all, we got a lot of things about your perspective about local economic development in Nigeria. You mentioned about infrastructures, about equality, about men and women, and entrepreneurship in agriculture as well. I think it is the issue in any developing country still need to be solved together. So we have a conclusion for our discussion. As a host, I would like to hear what is your suggestion. What is your suggestion, your hope that local economic development in your country can be learned, or can you share some of the key success story that another country like Indonesia can learn? So you mentioned all our perspective, challenging problem, and the end. I think in the end of this question, I would like to hear what is the key success from your country, your case study, your city, that us as a viewer can learn some success story or some suggestion. So if you want to implement local development, there is suggestion. You have to what is suggestion that you want to say in 5 minutes maximum from Jordan, from FOLUKE, please. What is key success story for someone who want to implement local economic development program or framework? So in the end, we would like to hear the key success story from you. Please, Jordan, you go first.
Sure. Thanks, Sayed. So, for me, the most significant intervention that I made was we established a small grant for small emerging farmers in the city, which they could apply for, which was approximately, by today's standards, probably about $2,000 American dollars. And we used that to distribute grants to about over 140 farmers for the procurement specifically of water tanks, JoJo tanks, to assist them in the safekeeping of water for their crops, small-scale farmers. And that was quite a significant success just in terms of providing support to the sector. So that for me is one way in which you can provide proper support or solutions. And it's very small. It's not like a huge intervention. The other is you need to be able to try and identify the barriers to entry in some of your markets and see if any of those barriers are within the control of your local government. So in our case, sometimes when people want to drive developments, they have issues with regards to bureaucracy about planning around their infrastructure or their water connections, what they must pay, what they mustn't pay. And the ability to have flexibility in how you engage in those discussions is quite important so that you can unlock development in your city. But really, you've got to be actively looking to continuously diagnose why things are not moving or working in terms of a development compliance or planning perspective, because often things can get held up there. So that's another key area of success that I would suggest. Obviously, having a dedicated team, an investment team that deals with high value developments is very valuable, so that you can prioritize certain things above others. And this is very important because you need to try and make sure you make interventions that are going to be into the industries that have the highest level of social and economic impact. So those are just some of the few key suggestions that I would make in this space.
Thank you, Jordan, for the suggestion. So, and then FOLUKE, please, what is the key success or suggestion that you would like to say for someone who want to implement local economic development in the city or in the project case, please?
Yeah, thank you. I think I would just follow up, Jordan. For me, from my Nigeria experience, I see that when people collaborate, when people, build a network, when people work together, when you don't intend to go it alone, like they say, when you walk alone, you walk fast. When you work together, you walk far. In the Nigerian situation, that has helped. Some of the global stars that you see or you heard about, coming from Nigeria in the entertainment sector, when they started, sometimes you are willing to go to somebody else's show just to perform free without the person, paying you. You are willing to offer your own skill, your talent, to complement another person's, skills or knowledge or talent. Then once you guys just know the focus is that, oh, we are going far, beyond where we are now. The global stage is my goal. And you work together like that. In Nigeria, I've seen that, helped, particularly in the entertainment sector. People, having a pool of talents, sharing, just shared responsibility and shared vision. I've seen that, helped. That even when government is not providing the infrastructure, but because of the network of, entertainers that you are involved with, what government could not provide, they are providing. They are giving you the knowledge, they are giving you the contact. And sometimes when you think that the regulations are rigorous or too stiff, they are giving you, ideas on how, to go ahead, to overcome, barriers. Talk about tax. There are people who have information about the tax system than you have. And sometimes there are opportunities within the tax system that you can navigate, to legally, get, some form of reprieve, from government, which are legal in a way. But if you didn't have people who have such knowledge, you would not know how to overcome, such barriers. So I've seen in Nigeria, in the Nigeria case, that working together, collaborating, partnership has helped, some of these people that would have operated just locally, that have been restricted to their local environment, gone in global. I've seen, that work. And I think information is also key. Data collection is key to helping any local economic development. If you do not have the data, you cannot plan. And also not being combative, with government, trying to be collaborative, with government, seeing government as a partner in the economic growth, as is also helpful. Because sometimes when you are combative, you are not dialoguing, there's no dialogue, each person is just trying to maintain, their own, stand, and that has not been helpful. If we need to grow our economy, it's our economy. The economy is for everybody. It's not just for one person. So we must find a way to work together to see how we build an economy that works for all, not just for one.
Okay. Thank you, FOLUKE, for your suggestion, and also Jordan for conclusion. This is very interesting to see how Jordan mentioned there is small project for initiative starting in the community will make a lot of big impact if you do in the right way. And as mentioned by FOLUKE, collaboration, also data collection, and how you can work together, all the stakeholder you can involve together in the project because you work for all. I think this the end of our discussion, very short discussion. I think we hear a lot of sharing from both of you, from Jordan in case of Tshwane in South Africa, also from Lagos in Nigeria. And I think next time we can hear from another friend to see how another work is happening right now. And also very glad to me to host both of you virtually. Hope next time we can meet face to face again. Thank you very much for your time, FOLUKE. Thank you very much, Jordan. Hope to see you again in next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Lovely to see you. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye, Jordan.